I would say that this is a rare case in which the title of this video, the title of this live stream, tells you a great deal about what you need to know in terms of the intellectual background bringing me up to inspiring me to hit the record button and record this statement. Okay. I have seen black pill discussion on the internet. I have seen red pill discussion on the internet. I have seen the feminist critics of both the red pill and the black pill. I saw the whole fascination with the incel subculture rise to its sickening crescendo and come crashing down to the ground in the last few years. And the fundamental thing in the 21st century is that issues and ideas and dissatisfactions in life that people used to take to the bar, they used to discuss drunkenly while smoking cigarettes at a pub, or that they used to take to their pastor, they used to pour out in the confessional booth to a Catholic priest or nun who probably didn't know what the hell to say to them in response. Great person to get love life advice from. Go talk. You want to know what to do with your love life? Go talk to a priest at church. That's great. You know, people are now coming out on the internet and commiserating. And I think among the left wing and among feminists, there's this kind of sickening assumption that the disappointed, brokenhearted people who come out on the internet and ask for this kind of advice, that they're insincere or that they have bad motivations. And I don't feel that way about it at all. I think people are really authentically, genuinely brokenhearted, genuinely unhappy with their lives, and they're coming out to commiserate. They're coming out to ask for help and advice. They're telling their own stories. They're listening to other people's stories, and they're trying to make decisions so that they can live a better life. Now, I would say this especially about the black pill people. So we have someone in the live audience now who says that he or she is black pilled. You can take a moment and just tell us what black pill means to you. This is my summary of what the black pill means. Black pill means they're people who are unhappy, and they believe they're always going to be unhappy. They're like, look, these are fundamental problems in their life. They can't change and they can't overcome. Now, it's not all that specific. Some of those are people who say that they're lonely and they're always going to be lonely. Like that's the particular kind of disappointment. Some of them are people who say, well, look, this is the kind of love and affection they were looking for in life. Like this is the kind of relationship they wanted, and they're never going to have it. So, you know, there's some other relationship they can have, but not what they really wanted in life, not their fantasy, not their dream. Now, that's the black pill is going to mean different things to different people. Like maybe some people, especially or stereotypically women, I've met women and they had an idea of the kind of man or the kind of husband or the kind of home they wanted to have. They had a fantasy, and then at some point they get black pilled because they realize they can't have that. Now, that doesn't mean they can't have sex at all, but it means they can't have the particular kind of sex with the particular kind of person they wanted to have, the particular kind of family, the particular kind of life they wanted to pursue. I think a lot of people, even if we're just talking about this in terms of sexuality and dating, the black pill has to do with them being disillusioned with the education system, with career, with what they thought their life was going to be, what they thought was going to be meaningful and rewarding with life. And I'll say real briefly, this video is not especially autobiographical. It's not especially about my life experience, but I saw all this coming together in the most dynamic way at Cambridge University, England. There were all these relatively young women. I mean, a lot of these women were like 28. They were women 28, 29, 30, 31. So I'm saying young, but I guess I don't really mean it. I mean, they're young compared to me now. I'm in my 40s. But there were these women who were looking at the wall. That's 21st century. They were looking at the wall. They were looking at running out of time, right? We used to say in the old days, back in the 1980s, the clock is ticking. You know, they could feel that big number 30 coming up. And they were so miserable and so distraught because they got to Cambridge University, England, and they found out the education wasn't worth having. The career path they wanted to pursue was either impossible to pursue or not worth succeeding in, that all of that was meaningless. And this fantasy they had become deeply committed to, that when they got to university as a 28-year-old woman, that there would be these fascinating, highly intellectual, handsome, brilliant, witty, hardworking men who would just be out to get them. And they would find this husband who would take care of them for the rest of their lives. So they had a fantasy about the type of man and the type of marriage and the type of life that would ensue for them if only they could get into this master's degree program at the university, or if only they could get into this PhD program at this university. And guess what? Real disappointment ensues. Real black pilling ensues. This use, but in a really meaningful sense, they become black pilled. And you know, I think that's something you have to address quite separately from the so-called incel phenomenon. They're not incels. I mean, the majority of people are not incels. The majority of people who come to complain on the internet and pour their hearts out, they're not incels. They may still get laid once in a while. They may even have a long-term boyfriend. They may even have multiple long-term boyfriends. But they're black-pilled because they're brokenhearted. They're disappointed. Their future can never be what they want it to be. There is a sense in which they're burdened with an intense awareness that they can never be happy, that they can never be satisfied, that they can never be, fulfilled. I think a lot of people live with that. I mean, look, me and Melissa, we have been together for 4 years. We have both made tremendous sacrifices to make this relationship possible and to make this relationship work. The type of sacrifice is very different. We didn't make the same sacrifices. She made tremendous sacrifices in her life. I made tremendous sacrifices in my life. Now, both of us could talk about what we could have done, what we could have accomplished positively in the last 4 years if we weren't together. Melissa is now learning Chinese. Think about what a wonderful life she could have if she wasn't learning Chinese. I'm not joking. Like, really, she could be doing something better with her time. During the last 4 years, she could have been doing something better with her time, right? But it means so much to each of us just to be in a relationship with somebody who appreciates the things we care about. And we know it's rare. So I woke up this morning. I was awake for about 2 hours before doing this live stream. We got up about 6 o'clock in the morning, local time. I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was reading specifically, I might as well say the particular book. I was reading Machiavelli, and I was reading Polybius. So this is Politics of Ancient Rome, Ancient Greece, how it connects to democracy today. Trust me, you can be in a relationship with a woman who doesn't understand or appreciate that, right? Now, as I said, Melissa was busy doing her own work. We didn't have any really deep conversation, but like at one point she got up to go to the kitchen and I read her a few sentences from what I was reading. There is appreciation. There is mutual understanding. There's mutual motivation there, right? I'm not going to talk about this at great length, but there is a sense of trying to live up to the positive expectations that other person has of you and the positive expectations you have yourself, where there's this positive feedback loop that's there all the time. And Melissa knows if she breaks up with me, she's a good-looking woman. She can get another man. She can get another man who watches ice hockey. She can get another man who watches football. She can get another man who maybe plays Mario 64. You know what I mean? Like, you can get another man. Oh, the problem isn't being incel. The problem is being blackpilled. The problem is Melissa breaks up with me. How is she ever going to find someone with whom she lives this kind of meaningful life? This kind of mutually motivating, mutually appreciative, positive, profoundly positive life where you have those values in common, where, you care about the same things. You're pulling the same weight in the same direction. And look, I get it. Not everybody's an intellectual, right? Not everybody's this kind of intellectual. Like, not everybody's an intellectual, and not everybody's this kind of intellectual. Not everybody is vegan, among other things, right? Not everybody ethically cares about the things we care about. Not everyone cares about environmentally the things we care about. Oh, but Melissa can get another man. Some people write in to tell me Melissa could get a better looking man. Completely true. You get a real good looking man who watches football, watches ice hockey, and listens to GWAR. Yeah, I showed up. GWAR. If you don't know, you can get a real good-looking man who listens to GWAR. That's not what she wants out of life. If I were twice as ugly as I am, she'd want me. If I were twice as fat, she'd want me. Seriously. There are other things here that are really positive, that you really appreciate about the person. And my point is, being blackpilled, I wasn't trying to make this like a totally autobiographical video. This is kind of about you, not me. It's kind of about the audience, not me. But being blackpilled has to do with giving up on that kind of heart's desire. So it has nothing to do with being an incel, right? You could be blackpilled as a man. Oh God, can I relate to this? Let's just say you're at the University of Toronto. You're at the quote unquote, the best university in Canada. And there isn't a single other intellectual, male or female. You don't meet anyone else who has the slightest interest in their courses. Somebody could respond to that by being blackpilled and saying, well, the only type of woman for me to sleep with here is a bimbo. So therefore, I'm just going to sleep with a whole bunch of bimbos. You could be having a sex life where you have sex with a different woman every month. Like you're having a really active sex life, which in my opinion is, some people say, well, why not a different woman every week? Let's say it's 12 women a year. Let's say you're going out, romancing, sleeping with a different woman every month. You could respond to that by having a sex life where you're doing huge numbers, but you're still blackpilled because that's not what you wanted. right? You've given up on everything you want. You have given up on pursuing the kind of person you want to be with. You have given up on becoming the kind of person you want to be with. You want to be yourself. All right, I'll say that again. You've given up on pursuing the kind of person you want to be in love with, and you have given up fashioning yourself into, disciplining yourself into, becoming the kind of person you want to become, because you've been blackpilled. You've come to the conclusion you can never have the life you desire. You've never had the life you wanted. And your way of coping, your cope, is to bang a bunch of brainless strangers or some people you don't really love and don't really respect, and who don't really love you and probably don't really respect you either, right? So my point is, you're being blackpilled is something different from the incel experience, you know? Oh, so here's an interesting comment from one person wrote in to say Guar was great though. Would you marry someone who listens to Guar? I ask you. Somebody asked, is this red pill shit? No, it's the opposite. I mean, you know, I think actually the title of this video even makes it clear. You know, like what we're talking about here in some ways is white pill. It's the opposite of the black pill. So I mean, like my critique of red pill would probably be a lot longer. But like what I've said positively about the black pill, and to some extent you could say this about the red pill also, is look, it's human nature to want to complain. People are heartbroken. People are disappointment. People are disappointed. No edits. Keep rolling. No take two. No take three. People are heartbroken. People are disappointed. People get black-pilled and people get red-pilled, and people want to come on the internet and share their feelings. Okay, so I'm not opposed to that. And a lot of feminists are. Like a lot of feminists think this is evil, just to come out and say how heartbroken you are. And, you know, a lot of feminists and a lot of left-wing, politically correct type people, they're hating on this. And I'm saying, no, there's something meaningful here. However, where I really differ from the black pill people is the question of what next? What now? Positively, what are you going to do going ahead? My perspective on that is completely fundamentally different. I'm white-pilled. I'm optimistic. I'm positive, as opposed to being hopeless. And it's that positivity based on nihilism that motivates me in a lot of ways to come on the internet and talk about these things, try to share with people, you know, try to help other people in this way. Oh, great. Well, my number one fan is back to try to troll. Man, it's a hard working. I got one troll. I got one. And we got 47 people in the audience, 24 thumbs up. If you guys could give it a thumbs up now, it'll help other people join while we're live streaming. It's no big deal, but yeah. If we have 48 people in the audience and we have 48 thumbs up, YouTube is going to show this even to more of my own subscribers, and a few more people will join the crowd. Maybe a few people who, you know. Okay, so look, I don't mind. I can respond to some of these things because I'm not going to forget what it is I've got to say here. Someone comments from the audience, quote, "Yeah, but women only date men with money these days." Women, huh? That's a generalization about women. Like, you think you can't argue against your own position. I'm not hating on you. Like, I know why you feel that way. I know, like, maybe the high school you went to, that's what was going on, right? Tell me, did you go to a Muslim majority high school? Muslim women are women. Is that how you think? What goes on in a Muslim culture? You know, there's probably another high school in your city that's Muslim majority. So where I grew up in Canada, there were all Jewish high schools. There were all Muslim high schools. There were, you know, I just say we had different high schools associated with different ethnicities and religions. This is you think all women live in that? Really? You know, I'm sorry. It's totally cool for you to feel that way or talk about the women you relate to. If what you do is hang out at nightclubs, certain kinds of nightclubs, meeting certain kinds of women, I understand you might feel that way. You know what I'm saying? But no, it's not all women. And just a really brief digression here. Back when I had a Discord group, I no longer have a Discord group, but I still have t-shirts. For the first time in many years, you can buy this t-shirt. But hey, it's available now at à-bas-le-ciel.com. But anyway, this t-shirt's a collector's item. The new one, it's the same, but as a V-neck. If you have the original, it's round neck, by the way. Okay, well, I used to have a Discord, and I remember a guy came into the Discord, and he said to me, "Look, you're totally wrong about France." And I think he knew. I've been married to a French woman. My first wife was French, so I've lived in France to some extent. I know French culture to a limited extent. And this guy said to me confidently, he said, "No, you're wrong. What you don't realize is that every single woman in France by the age of 25 has had more than 50 sexual partners, like 50 minimum." You're saying. And I think she was like, oh, really? What was your major in university? Like, let me guess, were you maybe in theater? Like, there have been all these studies about IQ and sexuality, like intelligence tests and sexuality. There are tests of these different looking at different criteria and then looking at how many sexual partners people have per lifetime or how many sexual partners they've had in the last 5 years, right? And none of them have the statistical significance. None of them have the predictive power of asking, what is your major in university? Okay. If you were a chemistry major, if you were a math major, this predicts to a massive extent how many sexual partners you've had and what kind of sexual partners. If you studied chemistry at University of California, Berkeley, as opposed to being in the theater department, as opposed to being in the film department, okay, I'm sorry, there are differences. And my point is here with these generalizations about women, with these generalizations about men, also, I'm not going to fault you. I'm not here to shut down. I'm not here to say like, oh, these guys who are hashtag blackpill or hashtag redpill, that it's all bad or it's all wrong or it's all evil. People need to come out and talk about their experiences. But when this French guy was saying to me, this French guy was convinced that each and every woman in France by age 25 has had more than 50 sexual partners. The French women in their teens and early 20s, they just sleep around to this massive extent. I had statistics, some statistics I quoted about how many sexual partners they ever had. He's like, oh no, wherever you got these statistics from, they're totally wrong. And I said, tell me something. Have you walked past a church lately? If you live anywhere in France, how many churches did we walk past just going from our apartment to the grocery store? There are churches everywhere. So let me tell you something. Did you go to a religious high school? Oh, do you ever go inside the churches and talk to people there? Those are women too. They count also. They're also in these statistics. This particular guy, you hang out with chain-smoking, liberal arts, left-wing intellectuals in Paris. Okay, you are hanging out with a subculture within a subculture within a subculture, and you're telling me all the women in that subculture have more than 50 sexual partners by age 25. Okay, let me tell you something. That's not a representative sample. That's not everybody. Instagram models are not everybody. Some people are Christians. Some people are Muslims. Some people are ugly. Some people are just chemistry majors or just math majors who live their whole life in that way and think about their sexuality and their future and their youth and studying what they do with their time in a different way. So no, you really have to be honest with yourself and others. You really have to be self-disciplined in making generalizations about women, about men, about love, about sexuality in this way. So by the way, great question. I'm gonna answer this quickly. Oh, hey, two great questions in a row here. Question 1 from Monsieur Garcia. In the past, you've spoken about being open to open relationships for productive and meaningful reasons. Have you with Melissa or you with your ex-wife in the past acted on this, had multiple partners? So just briefly, it's not because I'm embarrassed about it, all right? Every single committed relationship I've had has been an open relationship, all of them. Okay, unless you count like my first girlfriend in high school. Like when I was still in high school, no. But like as an adult, let's say from the middle of university or something through to now, all of my relationships have been open relationships. Okay. But then you ask, so this includes my marriage to my first wife. Okay. But then you ask a second question. So do you actually have multiple partners? Right. So we've just been talking about this. Some of you have not been here since the top of the video. Once you really care about having meaningful relationships with people, right? Your standard, you get choosy quick. It's very hard. I'm an unapproachable person. And look, guys, I'm happy you're all in the audience today. It'd be great if you could give the video a thumbs up. I'm happy to have this conversation with you. You can tell I'm a gregarious person. I don't have a stutter. I don't have difficulty talking to women or getting along with women. Okay. I will never go to a nightclub, not even once. Okay, guys, I will never go to a baseball game. I will never go to a football game. I will never take a bitch shoe shopping and buy her high-heeled Manolos. I will never buy a woman a purse that I've only heard about in a rap song. So the names of high-heeled shoes and brands of purses, right? Like, you have to recognize what my life is about and what kind of man I am, right? And what kind of engagement I have with other people. And other people find it intimidating. So we'll come back to this. And I say, good. Be intimidated. Run away. Great. I'm so fucking happy for you. If you're an idiot, if you're a bimbo, if you're a shallow person leading a meaningless life, I'm so glad you're afraid to have coffee with me. I'm so glad you don't want to have lunch with me. And I don't want to drink coffee with you. And I don't want to have lunch with you. And I don't want you to be part of my intimate life either. That's great. I'm so glad you find it intimidating. But sure, I think Garcia, now that I'm just saying this briefly, I think you can put the pieces together. There are incredibly few people. And, of course, I'm a highly motivated, I'm a highly ambitious person. But I'm not motivated to seduce people. It's not my priority. So you're saying I travel all over the world. Okay, like at different points I've talked about going to Japan. Do you think I've ever once said to Melissa or thought like, oh, I should go to Japan so I can seduce or sleep with strangers? No. Why did we go to Greece? Why did I go to Cambodia or Laos? None of it. Like, I'm not motivated to do these things for my sex life. I'm out there, these different trips. I mean, I'm generalizing with travel, but I'm either motivated by research or humanitarian work. Like there's some reason for me to be going these places that really matters to me. I don't live my life that way, right? My ambitions give me a tremendously rewarding life, right? But in a meaningful sense, also it's exclusive, right? Like if you present this life to people, say, hey, who wants to jump in? Who wants to join in? Who wants to be involved even as a friend on Facebook? Let's keep it a little bit. Even for anyone, a woman or a man, to kind of be my friend and go along with my life, they find it intimidating. I mean, they find it, including, there were some women who tried to seduce me away from Melissa, and they felt like, whoa, I don't want to live up to this guy's standards, and that's a beautiful thing. I am never going to try to talk one of those people into living up to my standards, and I am never going to live down to their standards. So yeah, I think that's an answer. Quote, why does Eisel not talk about his sex life? We all want to hear about it, period. This is not trolling. So comment from DS. So DS, I think you haven't been watching the channel long enough. I have many times made videos talking about my sex life, and they are the most thumbs down videos on the channel, the most hated. I think actually the vast majority of my audience would prefer if I pretended I didn't have a sex life at all. So hey, another great question, but not the title of this video. What made you fall in love with Melissa? But look, let's just be real. So these are great questions. I'm not offended by any of this. Didn't you already get a sense of this at the start of the video? Like whatever, in the first 50 minutes of the video? I mean, I really talked about living a meaningful life with Melissa and how we're both powerfully, positively motivated to keep this relationship going and make sacrifices, even when it's not convenient. There have been periods of time when we weren't living in the same city. Like there have been periods of time we've been separated by circumstances, and it's really hard. And there have been sources of conflict and tension, and also just struggles about education and career. The need to earn money, the need to, sure. I mean, there are just problems like that. But, there is this sense of having a meaningful life together, which again, it's also present even in silence. Like I just say, like before I said, okay, this was kind of rushed. I said, like, this morning before I started live streaming, I was up for more than an hour, more than 2 hours. Got up at 6 a.m. And, the fact that my girlfriend appreciates what I'm reading and why and what I'm interested in. And she does also appreciate and support my physical fitness and health and stuff. That's just not that high a priority. I'm not trying to win the Olympic Games or anything. To have someone, even if we don't talk about it, it's there all the time. And let me tell you something. Maybe there are some younger men and women in the audience, and I can put you on game. When you are with someone who disapproves of what you're reading, when you are with someone who thinks that what you're reading is a fucking waste of time or what you're doing with your career and stuff, you feel that in the silence also. Right? You get to wake up in the morning and deal with that silence, even when you're not talking about it, even when you're not fighting, right? When you're with someone who morally disapproves of you, someone who intellectually doesn't understand you. So look, I think on that, it's a great question. We could make a whole bunch of videos talking about all these things. I'm just briefly glancing down the rest of the questions here. Yeah. Great question from the audience. What about cats, though? And he says, after realizing I felt the same way that Eisel does about pet ownership. So it's someone else who's anti-cat in this sense. Okay, so look, human nature does not consist entirely of social instincts. Obviously, most of what these people talk about and what they fantasize about is the desire to be with other people, to share your life with other people, to have a life together. And let's be clear too, those social instincts, they aren't just about getting laid, and they aren't just about getting married, and they aren't just about having kids either, right? Social instincts, in terms of evolutionary time, are also about building a tribe, building a community, having people you can rely on to take care of you when you're sick, having people you can rely on to defend you against barbarians, for real. I'm sorry, if you have any study of any, historical or ancient societies, you don't have to go back into the mists of early anthropological time. We don't have to go back to the Stone Age. It's very clear that our social instincts and our sexual instincts are not to produce a unit consisting of one man, one wife, and one child. And by the way, we're going to deal with gay relationships in this too, which again, fits into this larger notion of building a tribe, building a small society. So you guys know I used to live in Laos. I used to live in Laos and Cambodia and Southeast Asia. And you can study the tribal societies that existed there in the past, and you can study the tribal societies that still exist there in the present. If you have two people alone in the jungle, they are going to die. Your ability to survive as just two people together in the jungle is zero. Your ability to raise a child is zero. Now, you could get into actually what the minimum survival size is for a tribe. So I will just mention this briefly. There has been research done on this in Laos. I do think the research is somewhat biased and somewhat romanticized. A lot of people wanted to romanticize tribal life and tribal survival. But basically what people say in this field is that the higher you go up the mountain, the smaller the size of the tribe. So there was one tribe in particular where I was in northern Laos, and they lived way up on the pinnacle of the mountains, where it's cold. And they would survive with just like a nuclear family, so I know like 8 people in a house or something, 6 people, no village, no town. And it'd be kind of one mountaintop, one household. Now, there are issues here about disease and how you get water and everything else. And then this is the kind of generalized anthropological wisdom was as you came down lower from the mountain into the rice paddies and into the jungle, that you needed these larger and larger units to survive. Now, one reason for that, guys, is slavery, is defense, is what Thomas Hobbes calls the war of all against all. To give you a sense of how constant and omnidirectional war and slavery were in those cultures, we have tribes up there, northwestern corner of Laos, northeastern Myanmar, and then the adjacent corner of Yunnan, China. These are modern borders. They're not ancient borders reflecting the indigenous people. There are a lot of traditions out there of women tattooing their faces, not men. It's not trying to look tough, but women would tattoo their faces both to try to avoid being enslaved and turned into sex slaves, basically, but also so that if they were taken captive and enslaved, so that they could be found afterwards, so they could be identified, so that other people will be able to see them and report and say, oh, there's a member of your tribe that's ended up enslaved over there. I could see her with her facial tattoos, because slaves very often aren't, like, they may be literally in chains. They're not in a position where they can talk or shout for help. They just sit there. They're forced to sit there silently, but someone else can see it and then go back to the tribe and go, oh, that's where one of your women ended up, was enslaved with her. So yes, self-defense in the most brutal and ancient sense is part of why we have these social instincts. And everybody's got to sleep. The strongest man in the jungle is equivalent to the weakest child when he is lying down to sleep. Anyone can kill him in his sleep. So the need to have people who will defend you, who will defend your village or defend your hut while you are sleeping, all right? This is what we have social instincts for. We don't have social instincts just to get laid, just to have one-night stands, all right? Now, I'm not saying this means you should never have a one-night stand. I don't think there's some simple, leap of inference you can take from this kind of evolutionary psychology, and I always caution against that. It may be that a series of one-night stands is all that you have to enjoy in life, and if so, I pity you. But I am also not saying that on this basis we should all go back to living in huts, and we should all go back to living in Stone Age or Bronze Age conditions. All right, the facts of anthropology, the facts of ethnography, ethnology, evolution, those facts do not present us with an ideal for a better future society. And they do not provide us with values that we ought to live our lives according to today. Okay. What we can discover through anthropology and evolution, okay, it's not a standard for you to live up to. It's not an ideal for you to pursue. However, I'm here just fleshing out, what do we mean by social instincts? Okay. We don't mean that human beings by nature just want to cuddle and embrace everyone. We don't mean that human beings just want to seduce and sleep with everyone. And we don't mean, and this is really a 21st century thing, we don't mean one man living alone in an apartment playing video games. Totally isolated. He does his job, or let's say he's a stockbroker. He just sits at his computer to do his job alone. And then once every so many days, he goes out to a nightclub where he uses a combination of, let's say, money, alcohol, and cocaine to sleep with a random stranger. And then after that one night stand is over, goes back and lives alone in his apartment, right? I was saying, there are a lot of websites, there's a lot of hashtag red pill stuff. This is the ideal life for them. They live alone, they play video games, they don't talk to anyone, they don't put up with them, and then periodically they venture out to seduce some woman and have, short. And a lot of people, this is maybe the ideal for their sexuality during college. So I'm going to pause and just reply to you. So thanks. We got some notes of appreciation from Monsieur Garcia. He says, "Thank you for your tricky topic." Well, thank you. And for people to accept a fundamentally tragic commentary, a fundamentally tragic analysis, where I'm saying to you, I have the answer to this question, but it's bad news. I have the solution to this problem, but it's never going to work. Like I'm talking about this philosophically, but I'm not lying to you. I'm not giving you some overly optimistic sense of this wonderful solution I'm providing you for the rest of your life. And my own life, in that sense, is a tragedy, but it's a tragedy I embrace. It's a tragedy I'm positive about. Sorry, as I was saying many minutes ago, it's not that I think what the black pill people are doing is bad and evil and wrong, right? It's the question of what next, what now. Like, if you can't have this fantasy, if you can never be happy because this was your notion of happiness and this is what you're pursuing, and you faced up to the fact that you can't have that, okay, what now? What next? And I can't say that everybody has to deal with this. I think, though, when you look at the tiny minority of people who don't have to deal with this kind of disappointment in life, I think you'll generally feel sorry for them. I was just reading about, the real truth of who Michael Jackson was. And obviously, Michael Jackson's mental development was stunted by having too much success too early in life. He was already a multimillionaire and a success story, I think 8 years old or something. So as a very small child, he already had this kind of success. And I mean, nobody would want to end up like Michael Jackson. I mean, I mean that. If you know anything about this guy, despicable, awful human being, and also a drug addict and everything else. But I mean, shockingly too, Michael Jackson was heterosexual. So this has now been proven. A lot of people thought, from his manner of speaking, they thought he was gay or they thought he was a pedophile. So, well, no, he was heterosexual. He did sleep with women. He did sleep with prostitutes. So these things have come out after his death. He managed to keep a clean image. But yes, with the exception of people like Michael Jackson, who are pitiable as exceptions to the rule, all of us have to deal with this fundamental kind of disappointment that, the hashtag black pill people, to some extent emblematize for us. There are extreme cases of it coming out on the internet and talking about their disappointment. Okay, a bunch of other sympathetic comments here. Okay, so a couple people were talking about introversion I left a comment on the internet about this the other day that got a bunch of thumbs up. Okay, what you call introversion. All right. What if it's an excuse? All right. What is introversion? Okay. Some people have ambition. Some people care about making the world a better place. They care about helping other people. And they wake up every day to pursue those ambitions and help other people and make the world a better place. And some people lack those redeeming qualities, and they call it being an introvert. Okay. I don't believe that socializing with others exists as an end in itself. But let's take the simplest and stupidest kind of charity. Let's talk about running a soup kitchen. This is an American tradition. Let's talk about giving soup to poor, hungry people. Let's get specific. There are camps of refugees on the border near where you're living, and you are going to set up a soup kitchen where you go out and give free soup to people who are in some kind of internment camp or refugee camp. Okay? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if we're talking about this being on the Jordanian border. It doesn't matter. The Cambodian border. We had refugee camps there for decades and decades and decades. Okay, if that's what you want to do, and if that's what you care about, all right, you can't fucking tell me that the reason you're not doing it is because you're an introvert, and you can't, conversely, you can't tell me that the reason you are doing it is because you love people. No, you don't. You don't love the people. If you're actually going to get out and do that, if you were actually going to go and have a soup kitchen and help refugees, you are going to learn just how awful those people are, face to face, man to man, one time. You are going to work with people. You're going to have colleagues that you hate. Like, oh God, this guy Jim, he's such a drag, but I can't run the soup kitchen without him. You're going to be thinking, I'm looking for any excuse to fire Jim. I want to replace Jim and get someone else to chop up the celery to make the soup. And, again, you have a soup kitchen to help drug addicts. You're going to see how awful the drug addicts are. If you have a soup kitchen to help refugees, you're going to see how awful the refugees are. Even if you start with some kind of delusion that this is about your social instincts, that you love people, that you love the people. Okay, go to the people. Be the people. See the people. Smell the people. Talk to the people, right? And you're going to figure out you don't like the people anymore, okay? You're going to figure out how much you hate them and how much they hate you. They hate you back. They don't like you. And if one person out of 1,000 that you help becomes your friend, it's a fucking miracle. If one person out of 100 that you work with at that soup kitchen becomes your real friend, it's a miracle. All right. So that's a simple ambition, running a soup kitchen. Any ambition, any desire to make the world a better place, any ability to help others, it's incompatible with this thing that people call being an introvert. But maybe what you're calling being an introvert is really that you're a lazy, selfish piece of shit. Maybe you're lazy and you're selfish and you're hung up on short-term self-indulgence, and you're vindicating that as a personal characteristic that you call introversion. Okay, and I say that's bullshit. All right? If you go out and open a soup kitchen, you won't be an introvert anymore. Period. You'll be the most extroverted fucking person in the world just dealing with managing that soup kitchen, dealing with the other staff, doing the fundraising, getting the donations, dealing with the beneficiaries, anything. Anyway, great question, though. Thank you. All right, so a brief question from Suleiman Ali. He says, quote, I like that you clarify what you mean when you make a point so you don't accidentally mislead people, just like how you were clarifying the point you made about one-night stands not being inherently bad. Okay, great point. This particular video is not really about one-night stands, but you're right. It's not that it's inherently bad. It's extrinsically bad. And, I have made videos talking about that before, where what you have to ask yourself and question, short-term and long-term, is what kind of person am I trying to become? How is this going to change who I am? Who am I trying to be? But, let's get, so I have this relationship that's gone on for 4 years with Melissa. What if Melissa and I had met up and the relationship just didn't work, if we weren't compatible? Well, we wouldn't have intended for that to be a one-night stand, right? But you can go into a situation with the best of intentions, and it's a one-night stand or a one-week stand. So no, I'm not going to say one-night stands are inherently bad. But obviously, I mean, also in my critique, I was saying, well, living your life. All right, so let's address this profoundly but briefly. All right, what is the basis of the political organization for a society? Like in principle, what do we have a polity for? What do we have a city for? What do we have a country for? What do we have an empire for? We deal with a lot of empires in the world state. Okay, the answer to that question really shapes everything that happens in that society, institutionally, culturally, and otherwise, right? Like the principle of the foundation of the country of Saudi Arabia is different from the principle on which the United States of America is founded, and it changes life there in every way all the time, right? The principle of being beholden to a king because you were born on his land, it's different. It changes things. Does your government exist in principle to provide justice? And now that's a very hard promise to live up to. Do the people and the bureaucrats, do they all regard the doing of justice as being what government is fundamentally about, or something more? So nobody does today. Nobody does. People treat the justice system as this kind of ugly footnote to American democracy, and they don't really want to deal with it. They don't really think about it, right? Or do you think of the function of government as being welfare programs, so-called New Deal social welfare? I think that's very common today. People think, the reason government exists is to give handouts, to give money to the poor, give free stuff to people who didn't work to deserve it. That has profound knock-on consequences. And sorry, another one. If you guys think that Saudi Arabia is too difficult an example to relate to, how about Thailand? Thailand is a kingdom, like in some ways on the surface, a much more appealing kingdom. Culturally, much easier for us to relate to. All of you would be happier living in Thailand than Saudi Arabia. But when you get in that fundamental question of what is government, what does it exist, it's in this sense that I would really warn you about one-night stands, right? So I said before, look, Melissa and I met. We were trying to fall in love. We were trying to spend the rest of our lives together. I said to Melissa openly, and I said to the other women who were pursuing me openly at the time, Melissa had competition. I am looking for a woman who can meet my daughter, who can be some kind of, second mother to my daughter. Like that's what I'm looking for. There's something to step up to here, However, if we'd met and it just didn't work or we just weren't compatible, then it could have been in effect a one-night stand. So you can see that's kind of the principle I was living my life for. And then there's more than one possible outcome or consequence. But sure, if you're talking about living your life for one-night stands, where that's what your sexuality is about, is meeting and seducing and discarding strangers, on the basis either just of their appearance or a very brief evaluation of their character based on chit-chatting with them. Sure, I think that's bad. Sure, I think that's corrosive, But sure, conversely, I've got to tell you something. It's hard to be sex positive, but I try. And, what is, if there's some warmth in you, if there's some generosity of spirit, you can reach out to another person and fall in love with them for just one night and move on. If you can do that and they can do that for you and you can have that together, how does that really compare to downhill skiing, parachuting, cocaine? The things people do for fun, the things people do that they think make them happy. How does that compare to speed running video games, repetitively playing the same video game over and over again for 100 hours so that you can get a world record in that video game? I can't say that sex is bad, and I can't say that one-night stands are bad. I can't make that judgment. Whereas I'm completely willing to say that alcohol is bad and gambling is bad and downhill skiing is bad and cocaine is bad. So, it's hard to be sex positive, but with all those warnings, I try. Great question. Is anyone else in the chat happily married? Thanks for coming. I hope you give the video a thumbs up. Everybody who's happily married, give a thumbs up. Everyone who's a miserable incel, give a thumbs up. Everyone who's blackpilled, Okay, so another great question. We got a lot of great questions and comments here, and that's great. But I do have to get back to my basic premise. So Silly Man asks, do you have any tips for approaching women in high school? And so, Silly Man, I think you are making the transition from high school to first year of university. He mentioned university there also. Do you have any approach? So that's great. I will digress to deal with that. But obviously, it's part of the title of this video. It is related to what we're talking about in this video. That the ultimate game is no game. Thank you for the thumbs up. It will help other people discover the video and join our audience while we're here. Even though we now have 57 people, I've repeatedly kicked everyone out, started again, but it's been great. We had 65 people before or something, and whatever. It is what it is. I can't expect people to have hours and hours free in the middle of the day here unannounced. I appreciate all of you making the time to come on. Okay, look, the problem with meeting women in high school, the problem with meeting women in university is that they don't know who they are yet, and they don't know what they want yet, and they haven't demonstrated what they're capable of yet. So you are making judgments about other people based on their potential rather than based on who they really are, right? And flip it around. That's true for them about you too, right? They are making decisions based on your potential. So if you are a 30-year-old dating other 30-year-olds, you don't have to worry about that. You're not dealing with potential. You're dealing with who somebody really is, what they can really do, right? You're dealing with, way better. It's way easier, whether or not it's better. When I got together with Melissa, she was 24, and it's partly a judgment based on who she is, and it's partly a judgment based on who she could be and who she could develop into, right? For Melissa was not the most mature 24-year-old in the world. She thought she was. I mean, she thought she was especially mature for a 24-year-old. And I think she learned in the years that followed that she really had a lot of growing up to do and a lot of maturing to do between 24 and 28. Now, I think I made the right decision. And it's been a huge investment of time and effort. It has been emotionally and intellectually exhausting for both of us. We've both made tremendous sacrifices to make it work. So someone in the audience writes in that yes, he or she is now 23 years old and doesn't know who they are or what they're doing. I think this is a woman writing. I think that she's 23, doesn't know who she is. So now look, I do not mean this as an insult, right? I do not mean to say it's a bad thing for someone who is 17, 18, 19, 20 to not know who they are and not know what they want. It's not a problem to be immature when you're like, what do you expect? Why would you expect that of them? Okay, so this is one aspect of it. So I'm giving this to you as real life advice for your romance life. So, when you approach these women, when you talk to these women, or if you're gay, then it's men approaching men, whatever. Whether you're men approaching women, women approaching men, whatever the combination is. When you're approaching people, you've got to kind of do it with the spirit of, who do you think you want to be, with this kind of awareness and with a knowledge that you're doing the same for them. You're letting the person know, hey, this is who I think I want to be. This is what I want to, this is what I think I want to become. This is what I think I want to accomplish. And you may be wrong, and they may be wrong. And within a few years, both of you might have given up on your dreams. Some people want to be a ballet dancer, and they figure out they don't want to be in the ballet. You want to be a police officer, and you figure out you really don't want to be in the police force. And these are simple examples, right? But like on a deep level, what you're going through while you're in university has to do with this kind of questioning of yourself and others. And that's delicate. And let me tell you something, here in Canada, white people in English-speaking Canada, the number one attitude you get, the number one reply you're going to get is, don't you know who I think I am? Who do you think you are? Probably should have said that the other way around. The point being that they simultaneously reproach you. They reproach you saying, who do you think you are? Don't you know who I think I am? It's this overblown, misplaced sense of confidence that they already know precisely what it is that they can't know, that they're already committed to a life path and so on, which, in the vast majority of cases, of course, is going to end in disaster or not last. How many people do you know who completely committed to dropping out of college and devoting their time to a YouTube channel, for example, and a few years later, they reconsider that decision, dropping out of high school even? this is a time in your life when people are supposed to be 110% committed to being a medical doctor, when they have no idea yet how boring and awful medical science is, or how denigrating it is to work in a hospital, whether it's as a nurse or a doctor. People are committed to being a lawyer, and they present, oh, I'm a young up and coming lawyer. Oh, you know nothing about what the practice of the law is like. You know nothing about what that's going to do to you and how it's going to change you and what that's going to be in your life. And so on down into much more specific areas of studies. So that's hard. That's hard for everyone, Now, coming back to the title of this video, the ultimate game is no game. So I've said that. I've set this up with the kind of sensitivity to these aspects of human nature. And then in that context, I really feel the ultimate game is no game. The ultimate game is just to meet these people. You present yourself, and this is coming back to the main point of this video, and you feel out and you have a sense for, is this somebody I would want to have coffee with? Is this somebody I would want to have lunch with? Is this somebody I would want to have friends with? And those are much lower levels of compatibility and common interest than, is this somebody I would want to put my penis inside, impregnate, and spend the rest of my life with, right? Like that's a huge level of commitment that comes after that, right? Yeah, so there's a bunch of intelligent comments in the comment section, but I don't think I'm going to digress to deal with them. Okay, so let's get back to the fundamental point of this video, and then we got to read and reply to the question from the audience. This is inspired by people have social instincts, but they also have antisocial instincts. Okay, very fundamental to life on Earth are not just those instincts that drive people to come together and form a family, drive families to come together and form a tribe or a clan, or to live in a village together, to form a society on even the smallest scale. Those social instincts that drive people to develop mutual respect, mutual trust, like I'm going to go to sleep and I trust that you are going to stay awake and guard the village, and you're going to bang a drum or something to wake us up if something lights on fire. It's a huge problem in ancient society. Sorry, relying on fire for everything. And everything is flammable. Like your house is made out of flammable materials. Everything's made out of flammable materials, but you rely on keeping fires going all the time, 24/7, keeping fires going. So you are going to wake us up if the fire gets out of control. You are going to wake us up if wild animals attack us, or if the next tribe over, an adjacent tribe, comes to enslave us. I am going to trust you. There are powerful social instincts that drive us out of our apartments, drive us away from our computers and our video games till this day, to meet other people and seek out a more meaningful life with them and helping other people and trying to make the world a better place. Okay. There's a lot going on in the social instincts. Okay. But we don't have social instincts only. Just as important, equally important, or even more important are the antisocial instincts. And we vilify this in our culture. It's just as important that you judge people and you say and you feel, I don't want to have coffee with you. I don't want to have this conversation with you. I don't want to eat lunch with you. I don't trust you. And I don't want to trust you. I don't want to get to know you and learn to trust you. I don't want to share my life with you, much less are you someone I want to have sex with, get pregnant with, reproduce, and raise children with. You know what I mean? So the negative index, the negative metric, the negative indication for how these instincts work, I think that's really a very useful guide to what it is to have game, and why I say in this sense, the ultimate game is no game. So when a woman rejects a man, and she may reject him in a shallow, catty, or insulting way, okay, we tend to dismiss this as if it's some personal failing, as if it is an evil, as if it subtracts from and doesn't add to our society or what is human nature. We're constantly, especially the people who are in the black pill and the red pill and the blue pill, all these people carrying on with dating relation. Okay. We have to instead treat that as a primary fact in life, that what all of us are doing all the time is rejecting one another. Every day you are meeting and interacting with other people, whether they are your classmates, your coworkers, your colleagues, people you meet at the grocery store. You meet people, you talk to people briefly, you interact with them. And even if both sides are completely polite, you reject them. You have come to the conclusion, this is not somebody I want to try to meet up with and have a cup of coffee with. This is not somebody I want to have lunch with. This is not somebody I want to share my life with. This is not somebody I trust or want to trust, let alone, have a child with. And you're doing this all the time, whether you're aware of it or not. And the other person may feel rejected also. You may not be aware that you've just hurt their feelings because they really did want to have a coffee with you. They really did want to have lunch with you. Or maybe they were even thinking you could become a friend of theirs, like have a meaningful relationship for the rest of your life. Or maybe they were thinking you might want to get them pregnant, or vice versa. This might be the person you'd have children with. And you have just shut them down. You have rejected them. It's something we're doing every day, over and over again, all the time. All right. It is part of the constant drumbeat of daily life is rejection, 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 rejection. Every day, all the time, every minute of the day, unless you're alone at home with your computer, right? And then once in a long while, whether it's once a month or once a year, you meet someone where you want to overcome those antisocial instincts. And you want to find out what it is you have in common. You want to climb over that fence. You want to overcome that hostility and develop that trust, develop that mutual admiration and appreciation, and really have them. Whether it is romantic or platonic, you want to have them as a long-term part of your life. All right. I think the fundamental error going on for the black pill people and the red pill people is it's a false sense of what is default. Like, these guys complain like, oh, well, I'm a perfectly attractive guy in my mid-20s. Why are these women rejecting me? Dude, every time you go to the grocery store, you're rejecting people. Every time you go to class, every time you go to work, you are surrounded by people all the time. And you think, this person is too stupid. This person is too ugly. This person is a member of a religion I disagree with. This person is ethically abhorrent to me. This person is a drug addict. All the time, you are judging people and rejecting them. You aren't offering to have coffee with all these people. You aren't offering to have lunch with these people. There's this one person that stands out in your imagination, and you feel that all of society is a fucking conspiracy against you. You think that feminists and liberalism have created a society that's unfair to you because the one woman you're attracted to who you didn't want to reject you did. You don't treat this as a primary fact of life, as the drumbeat of human life. You feel in a false sense entitled to be accepted whenever you desire someone. You assume desire is reciprocal, and it's not. I'm even going to go further. It never is. Okay? What's universal are these antisocial instincts. What's reciprocal by default is exactly this distrust, this distance, this standoffishness. And how do you overcome it? All right? You overcome it by having something meaningful in common, right? You overcome it through the extraordinary recognition. This is someone who cares about the same things I care about. This is someone who is going to wake up in the morning and read the same books I'm reading, is going to care about the things I'm reading. This is someone who cares ethically, politically, in whatever sense. Look, even if it were the pure sciences, even if this is you've got someone who's dedicated their life to the study of organic chemistry, and they meet this one other person who really sympathizes with the research they're doing or what they care about. Maybe it's even their hobby. A lot of people, you study chemistry at university, it's not how you earn your living. But, in their spare time, they're really committed to the literature for what's going on in organic chemistry. Whatever it is, you meet someone where you have this thing in common. And you say, okay, wow, I want to have lunch with you. I want to take that first step. I want to devote a number of hours to getting to know you on your terms. And there are going to be bad things about your character. There are going to be things I dislike about you. And I'm going to accept them. I'm going to accept you, all in all the good and the bad bundled up. I'm going to cope with it, right? Because of this common ground, because of this thing that helps us overcome, our mutual alienation, our mutual distrust, even we could say our mutual hatred, right? We have to treat the rejection as something positive. And if you don't think it's positive, just stop and reflect on how much rejection you engage in yourself. That, you meet people every day who are too stupid to be worth your time. Male or female, gay or straight, doesn't matter. Like whether it's platonic or romantic, you think this person's an idiot. And maybe you tell them they're an idiot. Maybe you insult them. The vast majority of times you don't. The vast majority of times you reject them, but you think, I'm just going to keep this civil. I've got to see this person at work every so often, or I've got to see this person at the grocery store. I'm going to keep this civil. I'm going to let this person know I don't want to have coffee with you. I don't want to have lunch with you. And sure, the main reason is stupidity. And you know what? The people you have common ground with, the people you feel this passion, to share your life with, whether platonic or romantic, whether just for friendship or for reproduction, right? You know what? In some part of their life, they may be stupid also. And again, when I talk about accepting what's wrong with them, if you with a lot of these people in your life, you'll think, if I didn't know about this thing we had in common, if I didn't know this common interest, this common passion that brought us together, I would have judged them for being stupid because they're stupid in this other part of their life, right? Now, we can give a million examples, but it's like, I know this person, they really care about the politics of China. I care about the politics of China also. So we become friends. It doesn't matter whether we're friends or we become lovers. It really doesn't. The person's conversation. But we overcome. Okay, wow. So let's spend time and have lunch. And, you care about Chinese politics. Okay. They smoke cigarettes. How can you be so stupid as to smoke cigarettes? Let's say this person, they may have a whole list of things wrong with them. They smoke cigarettes. Let's say they take Prozac every day. They're on a daily dose of Prozac. Let's say they take ADHD meds and they drink alcohol and they eat meat. All right. Of course, I could say, if I had met this person in different circumstances, if I just met them at the grocery store and we chit-chatted and laughed, this is all I know about you is, cigarettes, alcohol, meat, and let's say they got their prescription bottles. And whoa, you're a trainer. I don't want to know you. I don't want to. Okay. But the point is, you will meet and you will share your life with people when there is something in common that motivates you to overcome those antisocial instincts. So this is why I say my critique of the black pill movement is most of these guys are correct. Their hopelessness, if regarded as a single stage of analysis, is correct. The problem is that it's short-term thinking. The problem is it's a single stage of analysis. Instead of looking at your whole life over a period of decades and decades, instead of looking at how can I lead a meaningful life and then involve other people in that meaningful life. And some of them are going to love me, and some of them are just going to be my colleagues, and some of them are going to be my enemies. Some of them are going to hate me. Some of them are going to be my rivals. That's a good word. Some of them are going to compete with me. There's maybe a mixture of admiration and hatred, some kind of friction, and some of them are going to have sex with me, and some of them are going to raise my kids. What am I going to do with that over time, right? And obviously, it's got to come out of these kinds of passions, right? You can't have common ground with other people if all you care about is playing Mario 64. If all you care about is video games, all you care about is your selfish short-term indulgence. If you don't have ambitions, if you aren't accomplishing something great or something meaningful, let me just point out, that's completely subjective. Okay. Of course it's subjective. Look, here's a real down-to-earth example. Let's just say you are an African American. You're born and raised black in the United States of America. And you know what your passion is? Your passion is going back to the canon of English literature, stuff like Shakespeare, stuff like Jane Eyre, and pulling it apart and putting together new dramas, new movies that make this meaningful to the African American experience. So you say, hey, I want to do an all-black Hamlet. Hamlet is a famous play by Shakespeare. I want to do an all-black, Dryden, whatever, maybe get deeper into this literature. You want to make a Jane Eyre that means something to the African American experience. Okay? This may sound corny, but there's a lot of money in this. Trust me, you could get ahead with it. If this sounds like a terrible idea, it's the kind of idea that makes a lot of money, gets a lot of support. Okay, if you are passionate about that, think about what other kind of people you're going to meet. There are lots of people. There are probably lots of people in this audience who will sit here and say, well, that's a stupid passion to have. Who the hell wants to spend their time and effort reinterpreting Shakespeare for an African-American audience? Does it? Okay, challenge yourself on this. What if you're Japanese? What if you want to translate Shakespeare into Japanese and have an all-Japanese Hamlet? You want to have Shakespeare, but instead they're samurai with samurai swords and armor, and it's in Japanese, and it relates to the Japanese Renaissance or medieval experience, however you want to put this. Okay. Now I can relate. Well, okay, so it's meaningful for African Americans too. By the way, it's meaningful for Africans in Africa. It could be Black people in Africa who say, hey, I want to take this literature and appropriate it and reinterpret it and make it meaningful to our culture or something. Okay, obviously you are going to get laid. Can you fucking, I mean, this is shooting fish in a barrel. It's not the point. You're not studying Shakespeare in order to get laid, whether you did this in Japan or in Africa or Brazil or Georgia in the United States of America. Of course, this is going to bring friends into your life and colleagues in your life. And if you in the audience think this is bullshit and think this is a waste of your time, it's subjective. Maybe you're right. Maybe there's something better you could be doing with your time than Shakespeare. I don't think Shakespeare is the greatest thing in the world to do with your time. It's on a scale of 1 to 10, it's better than playing video games, but it's worse than something else you do with your life. You know, it's of some moderate level of meaningfulness. But you will meet the other people who share your values, who share your passions. You will meet the other people who perceive what you're doing as great, right? And some of them are going to want to have sex with you. And I don't even think it's a stretch to say, even if you're ugly. Yeah, there are limits. You know, if you're incredibly ugly, if you have 2 noses, if you're horribly deformed, you know, like I've talked about in other videos, people talk about ugly. There's relative ugliness. There's absolute ugliness. If you have such an extreme deformation that, you know, nobody's going to have sex with you, okay, I accept that. There are some people who are that disadvantaged. But if you are moderately ugly, if you are a 3 out of 10, the people who want to have sex with you will find you. And if you're so ugly that nobody has sex with you, still, this will be a way for you to have friends, for you to have colleagues, for you to have the raw materials for a meaningful life by getting committed this way. And I'm sure you guys remember, most of you were in the audience. We've had some new people joining. Thanks for hitting thumbs up. It's brought new people in the audience, as I said it would. I gave the example of running a soup kitchen as opposed to being an introvert. You see, obviously the same thing. You would have to be a psychopath to study Shakespeare and put on a Shakespeare play in order to get laid. You would have to be a psychopath to start a soup kitchen and start a charity that's helping the poor, you know, in order to get laid. However, yes, you know, of course, having a meaningful life in this way, of course, it's going to lead to you actually getting laid. I'm going to pause and just look at some of these comments. Somebody says, "Don't disparage the speed runners." So I have made some YouTube videos talking about speed running and playing video games and quitting videos. Okay, we got a whole bunch of interesting questions here. Somebody says the best that most of us are going to get is 80% to make sure your values are aligned. 80% compatibility with something, right? Okay, so good. Thanks, Mercia or Merska. I'm not sure about this person's name. I'm not sure if you're male or female either. For this discussion, whether you're male or female, might. Okay, but like how much you have in common with somebody, right? Like how much common ground you got with something. In some ways, that's going to be relative to also the greatness of your ambitions together, right? Let's just say you get together with somebody who has a nice body, good-looking man or good-looking woman. Again, whether you're straight, gay, male, female, you know, whatever combinations. Let's say you find someone who's attractive to you, but they're an idiot. They watch sports on TV, and you don't. You're too. Let's presume you yourself are too smart to waste time. What are you supposed to do? Let's say they smoke marijuana and drink alcohol and play video games, and they live this life this way. Okay. And every day you resent it. You feel like you're with a snob. Pardon me. You feel like you're with a slob. All right. You feel like you're with someone who's just not making it happen. They may think that you are a snob. 2 words that sound similar in English, but totally different. They think you're a snob. You think they're a slob. You feel disappointed with them. You feel let down. You're with this schlemiel, but they're hot. Like you were attracted to them in the first place. Let's say the sex is at least good. When you really despise someone, I don't know if the sex can be great. You know, I'm just being honest with you. If you really, feel free to write it and disagree. Oh no, having sex with people you have no intellectual respect for could be great. Couldn't tell you. But okay. But what if your life together is running a convenience store? It's very common. Husband and wife open a convenience store. Okay. Is that meaningful enough to make that relationship work? Or when you wake up in the morning, you're sitting and eating breakfast, you're talking about how business is going at the convenience store. Oh, you know, we have that new shipment coming in. We're doing this, we're doing that. Look, you know, maybe yes. I'm just being real with you. You can be in a relationship with a schlemiel and they are awful, and the amount you have in common is very little. But just the fact that you run this business together is enough. The greater your ambitions are, the greater the passion pushing you towards those ambitions, the more that's gonna make it work. And guys, the other women I've had who've approached me, really seriously want to relationship with me, they've had advantages and disadvantages. I used to say all the time openly on the internet, I assumed I would get with a vegan single mom, that I would get with someone who already had a kid, So obviously, if you go into that relationship, you have a complex relationship with the woman, you have a complex relationship with their kid, you probably have a complex relationship with their ex-husband, and you have a relationship with the parents and grandparents and other people connected to this complex family. It doesn't start, there are a lot of disadvantages there, and that person will have their own disadvantages of character, whatever their own shortcomings. But is there some great project, some great ambition? Are you running a business together? Are you trying to save the world together? Are you running a super, to ask about the life you live together and positively what it is that's pushing you forward, right? All their defects of character, all the disadvantages, they're going to be evaluated in that context. So look, guys, there hasn't been a lot of self-criticism in this video, right? But I was very sensitive to this in terms of my relationship with my first wife, right? Because when she got with me, I was super motivated as a scholar of Buddhism, also humanitarian work, also this, also that, right? And I really had to talk to her about, and I had to feel like, look, how do you feel about this when I've come to a point in my life where I am quitting being a scholar of Buddhism? I'm taking on a whole different sense of meaning and purpose, So I'm just saying that's not all advantages. I mean, no, she didn't respond to it that way. My first wife was completely in love with me, and we could get into why that is and what she loved about me. But she was someone who was completely in love with me and completely committed to me. And at least in terms of what she stated, there was no doubt in her mind that she wanted to be with me, even if I was not a scholar of Buddhism anymore. We had to talk about that several times. That had to come up from different angles. It's not just one conversation you have once. If you get committed to someone that way, but being with someone, so I was with her so let's turn this around. I was with her when she was an anthropologist, getting a PhD in anthropology. She gave up on that. After we broke up, she completely gave up on anthropology. So we could ask the same hypothetical question later. Would I have still been happy staying with her if she gave up on all of her intellectual, political, moral aspirations, the type of activism? Because there's kind of activism. So right, I am self-critical, and I'm willing to admit there are disadvantages to this. But yeah, I'm here to preach the advantages. I sincerely believe that all of you should take that seriously and live your lives accordingly. It's a rare case. I'm talking about something here morally that I think is true for all people in all times, in all cultures. This is advice that I think is universal. And I don't do that often. There aren't that many things that I can say. It's not just true for me. It's true for you. It's true for everyone. But that, yes, this is how you should live your life. And I think in an absolute sense, what the black pill people are saying are wrong, and what the red pill people are saying are wrong, and so on. And let me just ask also, with my competition, with the advice other people are giving you, what if you fail? What is your consolation prize? What then? What if it doesn't work out? Right? If you become a womanizer, if you start drinking and hanging around nightclubs and having one-night stands, if that's the life you live and if that's the person you become, and it doesn't turn out the way you want it to, what kind of person are you at the end of that, when you come to the end of that road? Or even in the middle, in the beginning, the middle, or the end, you're sacrificing the person you could have become. You're becoming a terrible person for terrible reasons, frankly. But even if you don't, if you don't succeed, what's the consolation prize? With the advice I'm giving you, if you don't succeed, if you end up alone, still you've lived a wonderful life, and you've become a wonderful person. You've become a better person. Okay. Interesting question off topic. I'll just say really quickly. Sam writes in and asks, this is a sincere question. Have you always been so comfortable with insulting people? ? Almost everyone I know will always try to avoid insulting anyone unless it's impossible. So no, I mean, at age 11 or something, this is not an innate characteristic. When you deal with real things as an adult that have real consequences, I think it's appropriate and important to say to people, look, this is the truth. This is the problem. This is the solution. And if you find that insulting, go ahead, get upset. It's okay for you to get upset. It's okay for you to be angry at me. It's okay for you to be sad. And then tomorrow we are going to change this. We are going to make a change. Sorrow and suffering are a positive part of life, and encouraging people to live in a state of their own optimistic self-delusion. It's massively destructive to everyone involved. Very often the truth you have to share with someone is insulting. It is hurtful. It does hurt their feelings, and often if you diluted it to the point that they didn't feel insulted, they wouldn't get the message, they'd ignore it, and they wouldn't make the change. So, Melissa is making a video that's not finished yet. This is more about the sorrow and the suffering and not being insulted, but it's being confronted with something. And Melissa was getting very upset making this video. And she was asking the question why she should make the video at all, not just because someone else could make it better, but specifically that I could make it better. Like if I made a video on the same topic, and it was an in-depth, meaningful discussion. But part of what I said to her is, look at how upset you are right now making this video. This is why you should make the video, right? It's true. If I made it, it would be effortless. But like you are going through this process of doing this research and gathering your own thoughts and opinions and putting this together and presenting a video. Like, you are doing something hard. You are getting out of your comfort zone. You are getting uncomfortable. You are challenging yourself, creatively and intellectually and emotionally. And you're having this breakdown right now. Like you're miserable right now. That's why you should make the video. That's why someone else shouldn't do it for you. Nobody else can do push-ups for you. I can do push-ups. You can do push-ups. If I do 10 times more push-ups than you, that doesn't mean it's pointless for you to do push-ups. You have to do your own push-ups. If I can interpret Aristotle better than you, that doesn't mean you don't have to read Aristotle. You read Aristotle yourself. You have your own interpretation of Aristotle, whether it's Aristotle or Thucydides or Shakespeare. There is something about, you doing it for yourself. So, the question from Sam was about, have you always been comfortable with insulting people this way? The fundamental thing to be comfortable with is sorrow, which is what this video started talking about. That was the opening of this video. Sorrow and suffering and misery and disappointment. They're part of life, and you have to embrace them. Why? To learn. So that you learn, so that you adapt, so that you grow, and you have to recognize it. So this video began by saying, look, these black pill people and these red pill people, they're coming out and sharing their sorrow and suffering. And we have to be willing to treat that as legitimate, even, as opposed to the kind of stereotypical left-wing feminist response of shutting it down and silencing it and shaming them for feeling this way. Like, no, people aren't happy with their lives. But, learning involves suffering, and that is why I'm comfortable with telling people truths that are too terrible to tell. And, I deeply do not believe in blissful ignorance. That goes far beyond the critique of religion for me. It involves all these other things in our life to a tremendous extent. Okay, I'm reading the rest of these comments about intelligent stuff, but I don't think I need to respond to each and every one. So briefly though, someone just commented that more than 50% of marriages end in divorce. It varies a bit from country to country, but yes, it's a safe bet. Wherever you're living, it might be 50%, it might be 60%, it might be as low as 45%. Yes. And I think we've already in this video outlined a bunch of very, very good reasons as to why that is. So Junebug asks, have we moved on to the white pill now? Well, I think that's what I'm outlining in this video, is a sense of a radical alternative opposite to the black pill that acknowledges the complaints and the misery the black pill are based on, but that transcends the kind of short-term thinking and ultimately self-sabotaging pessimism that black pillars have, that presents instead a fundamental optimism that you can lead a meaningful life, you can blaze a trail, and then other people will want to lead that meaningful life with you, will get on board with you. So Alex, you've been writing in again and again asking me to define meaningful. I just feel that's not the purpose of this video, but I think I've made many videos talking about what is a meaningful life and what is the meaning of life. In fact, I have a playlist for that, don't I? Now that I think of it, I have a playlist that is called The Meaning of Life, and it's something like not meant sarcastically, like, like, no, like seriously, this is a playlist about what is the meaning of life. I don't really want to interrupt this live stream now to find that. But there is such a playlist. I have made videos very specifically talking about what is a meaningful life, what is the meaning of life. I have made videos talking about meaning in the context of nihilist philosophy. And I could add this video to this playlist. So there is the link. I did find the playlist for you. So Alex, if that's what you want to know, I have made videos talking about that, but it's not the topic of today's video. The topic of today's video is the ultimate game is no game. Okay. So we've talked a great deal about this, the idea of antisocial instincts being primary in our encounters with other people, not secondary, and not something you should be shamed for. Okay. So I want to say this really clearly. If you see a good-looking, hardworking, intelligent, sober woman, okay, why should she want to have lunch with you? Why should she want to go to a coffee shop and drink coffee with you? All right. And if you turn it around, if you're a good-looking, intelligent, hardworking man, ask yourself the same question. There are people who want to have lunch with you and people want to have sex with you, and you don't want to have lunch with them. And most often it's because they're too stupid. They're just not interesting. You're not interested. Right. And there's this sick thing in our culture of vilifying the woman for not being interested and blaming the woman for rejecting you. And that is the most fundamental social virtue, right? She should do that. She should do that to everybody. And you do too. I mean, everyone in the audience, you all do. Every day you are rejecting innumerable people who would like to get to know you better, whether that's coffee or lunch or a 2-hour conversation. And you are saying, you are expressing implicitly or explicitly again and again, no, 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 no. I am not going to have lunch with you. I am not going to put 2 hours into getting to know you. So you have to embrace that and accept that as primary, not as secondary, not as a distraction, not as a detraction from what we're talking about here. And then I'm saying the way to move forward is to have passions where you develop things that you profoundly have in common with other people so that you overcome that antagonism, that alienation, so that, people accept you and they want to have lunch with you for exactly these kinds of reasons. And again, if you actually organize a soup kitchen, if you actually organize an all-black cast of actors to do an African-American reinterpretation of Shakespeare's Hamlet, you'll know people, you'll work with people, you'll find out what you have in common, politically, ethically, personally, aesthetically, in some way, and you'll work from there. So I'm going to read this question out. A question from a member of the audience. He writes in saying that he is a 22-year-old gay man romantically interested in another man who's in his 30s. The other man, the man he's approaching, is an intellectual, and the guy writing into me is not. However, he would like to become an intellectual eventually. He asks, are there any do's and don'ts when it comes to dating, loving, or caring with intellectuals, coming from your perspective as one? So I'll just quote this directly because it's a little bit touching. He says, this guy is so special to me, and I don't want to push him away because of my stupidity. Right? So I feel in this video, I have already set out all of the moving parts here. I think you can assemble the answer to this question from each of the considerations I've set out for you here already, right? Now, I do think it's positive to live up to other people's standards. I do think it's positive to live up to other people's expectations of you. I do think it's the most wonderful thing in the world to live with someone where you feel motivated to read a book because you don't want to let them down. You feel motivated to do the research because you don't want to let them down. You feel motivated to study Chinese because you don't want to let them down. You feel motivated to study French, to learn something, to work hard. And yes, on a much shallower level, maybe you wake up and you feel motivated to go to the gym and do push-ups because you don't want to let them down. You know, to live up to another person's standards, to live up to another person's expectations can be a powerfully positive thing. And if you don't have that in your life, you'll crave it. If you're in a relationship with some schlemiel who has nothing in common with you intellectually, you're with someone who just watches sports on the couch, and you'll think, I wish I was with someone where I would wake up in the morning and they're reading the same kind of books I read, or they're encouraging me to read these books and they care. You know, I wish I was with someone who had this positive feedback loop in my life where they are supporting my interests and aspirations and I'm supporting their aspirations and we're compatible in these ways, right? Okay. But that's talking about a relationship you are already in, that you're already a part of. It's a very different thing to talk about developing yourself intellectually, to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't love you back. Maybe someone you don't even really know yet. Like maybe it's someone you know from afar. You know, I don't know how distant these people are. Maybe it's someone you only have a slight acquaintance with. You know, I don't know what the nature of this is, right? Two things here. You know, intellectual development is not competitive, right? And it's compatible because what we do with this kind of research, it's always going to be so unique to ourselves. It's going to be unique to us, right? The purpose of me doing push-ups is not for me to do more push-ups than you. The purpose of me doing research, of me doing this reading, it doesn't compete with you. It inevitably complements you. If I've already read Aristotle and I have a good interpretation of Aristotle, if I've already read Thucydides, when Melissa reads Aristotle or Melissa reads Thucydides, she's going to have her own perspective, her own analysis, her own questions. There's something ineluctably, inescapably unique about what you bring to the books you read. There's something inescapably unique about what you take from the books you read and then how you use it, what you're going to do with it once you've read those books, right? But the challenge here for this young man is, do you think you can step up? Do you think you can show that you have so much passion, so much verve, so much ambition, so much tenacity that you can create this common ground, that this guy you have a crush on looks at you and thinks, wow, you've done this reading, or you have this interest, or you're pursuing this ambition. This is the kind of person you are. This is the kind of person you want to become. Okay, wow. I want to have lunch with you. I want to get to know you. I want to share my life with you. I want to see, where the rest of this is going. And you are correct. Precisely what you are fighting against is the tendency and the practice and the habit of mind that we all have. And that is perfectly virtuous, of going around and rejecting people, saying, thinking, and feeling, no, 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 too stupid, too boring, too ugly, too pointless. We have too little in common. That you don't want this person to think and feel that having lunch with you is fundamentally not worth their time.